God does some of his greatest work in transition. We want out, God wants in. And in these in-between periods of times which we hate, God does some of the most powerful work that he can only do in the in-between. Because a lot of times we know we should seek him, but I'll tell you, when you're lost, you really go after him in ways you don't normally. And just about the time you think a transition's never over, it swings up. And it begins to end. And all of God's people said, Amen. Amen. By the way, it's 3 years to 3 months. Wow. That's a long period of time. I started thinking about that, but I don't want to leave you hanging right there. It moves to direction. In direction, there's some destiny experiences. And then it moves you into a last of the, kind of the end of the transition. And it's called Faith Challenge. You've heard me say this before, so it won't go much longer. But Faith Challenge, the only thing worse than not knowing what God wants you to do is knowing. Because it pushes you. It pushes you beyond what you can do. It forces you to get out of the boat. It's that moment when all of a sudden you say to yourself, God, I'll trust you if you're there. And God says, and I'll step out. And God says, step out, I'm there. No, God, I'll trust you if you're there. And so we got this kind of back and forth with God a little bit. He challenged us to step beyond. And usually when we step out, we're stepping out into something we know that we're pretty sure we can't do. Pretty sure we don't have enough resources to do. And pretty sure in the end, if God doesn't come through, we're sunk. He's got us right where he wants us. And what happens is God does this greater work. He deepens you to take you wider. He deepens your trust in him so you can go wider for him. I was thinking about that in terms of this talk. I was thinking about our talk earlier on today. Remember, we talked about the fact that in some sense this whole thing called church planting has turned into this almost kind of prohibitive thing, when really it is God asking us to step out into our world and try to see it like he sees it. And yet, it almost feels like we're in an in-between. In fact, some people will tell you we're in an in-between. The word is we're in a liminal period. That's a transition from one period of time to the next. That's where the church is right now. And so when we hit these moments, these transition moments, it requires us to see things in new ways. But to get there, we got to go through transition. And I thought about the fact the last 4 years you have been in this transition. You hit a time of entry as an organization. Then we hit a lot of evaluation alignment. Am I in? Am I not? Is this going to be? Is it going to not? I mean, let's be honest. And what is this thing called Anglican mission? And how is this going to work? And are we a part or are we not? And who's going to lead it? And all that stuff. So all of a sudden now, up comes, okay. We're going to be this Anglican society, this mission. And we're going to try to do everything we can to reach Canada. Look at the person next to you and say, that's us. By the way, that's us. That's who we are. Did you know that's us? That's us. I'm making it me. Hey? I'm speaking Canadian now, huh? I'm making it me. It's us, eh? I talk like the, where do I talk like the plains?
Oh, the prairies, yeah.
The prairies. I talk like the prairies or whatever. I got the little bit of nasal, you know. That's my Canadian accent.
Gotta say A.
A. And just about the time you're about ready to step out comes this faith challenge. Can you be true to Jesus? Can you be true to some of the roots that you have? Can you be the church? But can you also do it differently? Can you do it in a new way? Can you really do, like we found out this afternoon, kind of the way he's always been at work doing? Well, that's kind of what we want to talk about tonight. By the way, I want to highly recommend this book. Since I did mine, I better do another one called thin places. Thin places is a term that came up during Celtic spirituality during that period of time. But a thin place describes the place that's close to where heaven meets earth. That seam. Ever thought about that? Where does one end and where it begins? And in reality, it's more of a spiritual term where all of a sudden God moves in and touches his people and does a unique work in a thin place. And the reason I like this book is the fact that it talks about something called missional communities. Places that are thin places. Places where God actually has a chance to show up in a neighborhood, in a city, in an area, in a place, because God's people are actually passionate to bring the mission of God to that place.
The geese.
What is that? Is that geese?
Just little goose.
Leaving that one alone. All right, so, dude, I can't believe you said that. Anyway, so tonight I want to talk about how God develops us in community.